In Xplicit talks, my main goal was to speak up and be the voice of the voiceless. But for this guy, he was a personification of what would be my worst nightmare. To not be able to speak properly, to stutter, and that was his problem. This is Xplicit Talks, and this is his story.
3, 2, 1. Yo guys, this is Xplicit Talk number 9. This is Mr. X, with a very special guest. Today we're explicit with Hussain.
Hello all, hi. How are you, Mr. Hussain?
I'm good. You can call me Mr. X now.
Mr. X?
Yeah.
Hello, Mr. X.
So
are you good?
I'm good, man. I've gone to the same school as this guy, high school. He's a classmate and everything. What stood out, you know, because we have a lot of people in class, right?
Yes,
we were like 25 or 26.
Even more, I guess.
Even more.
Yeah.
And what stood out was the way you spoke, the way you were speaking. You had a stuttering problem.
I did. So, first of all, in the name of Allah, my name is Hussain Ali, and I really had a problem with speaking. I had a stuttering issue, of which I really had some issues with, you know, because thinking about how you will speak on the other day at night when you go to bed, you think about how you will attract people or how you will speak to people. How, for example, I will speak to Mr. X, okay? And how I will persuade him into talking to me without even stuttering. This was the main problem, this was the main issue, okay? And stuttering really played an effective role in constructing my friends, being with people, etc. Because when I thought of that, I could stutter when I'm talking with a specific man, okay? I would always think about stuttering. I would always think about how this issue, how this concern would act as a dilemma in my conversation.
Yeah.
You know, when I thought of the person, when I thought of speaking, I always attempted to avoid being laughed at. And this was because of stuttering. Okay? So, I recall the time when I was at school. I was in grade 4. Okay? And I was asked to answer a question in math. The question was 8 into 8. What is 8 into 8? Now, I would say it is 64. Without even stuttering. At that time, at that specific moment, I raised my hand, the teacher chose me, and I answered 64. With a really tough time in answering this simple question. And so I realized that the best presumed solution is to avoid speaking to people. And this concluded with limiting my circle, with limiting my friends. I was in a private school. You know, people always think that private school students are the most proficient and they are the people that socialize with both males and females. But this was not according to my case, because I avoided speaking to everyone. I avoided stuttering. I avoided forming matters that would lead me to, you know, to lessen my circle even more, you know. So I thought of that the best solution is to not speak until I went to a government school which was with you, of course, the Sheikh Abdul Aziz. At that time, I faced a really hard time, not within the mental issues only, but also with the physical manner of how will I adapt to the change, to the drastic change within the subjects, you know? You come from a private school and you are exposed to English in a great manner. Then once again, suddenly, shockingly, you get adapted to Arabic forms. Chemistry in Arabic, biology in Arabic, mathematics in Arabic. For God's sake, this was a really hard time for me. And even to mention that, you know, in English we had to speak because our teacher asked us to speak every class. Every class he would choose a person and he would ask this person to speak about anything. This formed my nightmares. This made me not sleep. This made me think all night about what would happen if I stutter. Would the class laugh? Would I be able to present the most accurate form of speaking, or will I be laughed at? You know? So this was the major concern. This was the thing that I thought as difficult all this time. Still, I currently do stutter, but as you can see, stuttering now has decreased in a substantial manner. It has decreased effectively.
Right.
And this is because of me wanting to change. Okay?
It's very clear that, you know, there were some drastic changes. It's unbelievable how someone can actually withstand this. I wasn't experiencing, I never experienced stuttering, but I can only describe it in a sense where there is an overflow of emotions and things in your head, and you want to scream, you want to talk to someone, but you can't.
Exactly.
It feels easier to learn sign language than to just speak to people. And it feels like even if you scream, you would stutter.
Exactly.
Because even if you were about to talk about your emotions, if you're going to cry, you feel like you can't even make a sound. It's so, you feel like you're going to explode, you know? It's crazy. And what was the worst thing that happened to you during this phase where you were stuttering? What comes to mind?
You know, when I recall that phase, that stage of stuttering and the major effects of stuttering, I do not remember the physical issues, you know, or the moment or the things that happened at that moment, at those moments. Okay? I rather recall the moments before speaking, you know, the moments before going on stage and, you know, being an attractive sign for people to look at me and to listen to me, or to have an audience. Recognizing how this is difficult, recognizing how this may be a wary issue, a wary matter to me, was really the worst thing that happened to me.
Okay, so basically what happened was the main struggle was communicating
with people. Exactly, because you know, even when I reach home, even if I reached home, you know, I would simply go to my room, close the door, and study without even going to my mom or my stepdad and speak to them, you know. Not to also mention that, as you have said, your feelings or your emotions are overflowed. You have many feelings within you, but you cannot express them because you stutter. A bold phrase under stutter, under this word, because simply you stutter. You stutter, so you can't speak to your mom, you can't speak to your stepdad, and even if you do, the major concern was that that person would simply neglect you because you stutter.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah, exactly.
This was...
Of course, the problem wasn't just talking with someone. It's not as simple as that. It's more like your image, the way you present yourself, the way you express yourself. So what manifested because of all of that stuttering? What happened? I'm pretty sure it affected your mental health.
It did affect my mental health because, as I have said, okay, I was exposed to less sleep. You know, I would go to bed at 10 and sleep at 1, simply thinking for 3 everlasting hours of how would I effectively communicate with people, with my community. You know, the next day I would go to school, and how would I communicate with my classmates? How would I communicate with the person I would buy food from? You know, how would I communicate with my supervisor, for example? You know, this has creating, as I said, an endless notion of anxiety, of being tensed, of wanting to know of the several ways that can help me within speaking to people. But unfortunately, 3 hours passed by without any changes, without any modifications. I was exposed to stuttering since the 4th grade. Since the 4th grade, it has been really on a wide scale, on a wide range. Maybe because of the things that I had gone through, you know, the struggles in life, etc. And so, from the 4th grade until the senior year, maybe 8 years.
That's a lot. 8 years
of endlessly eating. You know, stuttering still is a problem to me. I still think about how I would talk to someone, but confidence has made it much easier. You know, I am a tutor now. I am an English tutor. I am also a translator and a volunteer for the Bahrain Red Crescent Society. And I had known many people, various forms of people, from all over the world, from the Philippines, from Italy, from every part of the world. And I have known them because I raised my confidence. I raised the level of confidence that I had.
It's important not to be very hard on yourself, not to be perfect, absolutely.
Exactly, in order to not stress yourself perhaps of the matters that would intervene with your health or intervene with your with the matters that you cater for the most.
Yeah. So, in the end, what would you tell those people who are struggling with not being able to really be their true selves? You know, it's trapped within them. You know, their tongue traps all that power, all that energy. What would you tell them?
You know,
and advice.
I would tell them. I would simply tell them that life is just once. Even if people laugh at you, let them laugh for as long as they want. If you are a person who stutters, do not be afraid of the community, because community is not as important as you. You are the most important person, according to you, of course. Okay? You need to communicate with people. However, the circumstances where, because you need it. You need it. You know? You need to know that People's talks would never end.
Yeah.
And that you need to be courageous enough to speak.
Right.
Speak up. Let the world hear your stuttering. There are no issues within this matter. Because you need to change. God says, لن يغير الله ما بقوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. If you do not tend to speak, if you do not tend to produce those vocal sounds, those sounds that would change your personality, would change your character, you would not reach anywhere. My advice, change. Change. Seek change. And get out of your comfort zone. I know I had been exposed to this specific matter of being afraid, of always wanting to not speak to people.
Yeah.
But believe me, speaking to people is a really efficient way of living. When you are thrilled, you get thrilled when you speak to people. You become excited of what you have to say and what they have to say in exchange, Of all the struggles that I had faced earlier, I interpreted English texts into Arabic in 5 international conferences, of which I had traveled to the Philippines, Italy, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, etc. So you need to change. If you change, you will get accustomed to success. You will get accustomed to being prevalent, to being a proficient person in the world. There are some issues, there are some matters that would suffice you to some certain matters, some certain rules, okay? But this does not need to be you. You need to change. You need to change yourself and change your environment. This is why I became a tutor.
Okay. So, saying you're a warrior. You actually, your enemy was so close to you. It walked around with you. It slept with you. It ate with you, and it prevented you from speaking. It was kind of. Yeah, it was more of a Stockholm syndrome where, you get in a relationship with your kidnapper. It's like you're there, but you're snatched. Your voice is snatched. You do not own your own voice, and now you've chosen to speak up and
to influence people
exactly.
And to change them.
Exactly.
I thank my mom, the first person who stood with me from the very beginning to the very end. Right. She asked me to go to a summer camp that was held by the Bahrain Red Crescent Society, as a trainee, of course. But then I started speaking, and because of speaking, because of being a proficient individual there, the Bahrain Red Crescent Society had asked me to be with them, to be a member with them, and to travel with them, to translate with them. So my mom was the first contributor to changing myself. And she saw my change. She saw my success. And I bet
that she's proud of you right now, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of people are going to be influenced by this. You have chosen to speak up despite everything, and to actually have a voice and get back your voice. So I thank you, and I'm honored to have known and shot this episode with you.
Thank you, sir.
Sure. I mean, hopefully we will make a lot more and continue in our journey to influence people.
Hopefully, and I wish you many more forms of success, inshallah. With influencing many diverse people.
I hope, definitely. Trying to reach everyone just like you're used to in Xplicit Talks with Mr. X. Remember, stay explicit.